Are you feeling a bit out of touch with what your audience truly wants? Or do you have a desire to deepen your understanding of your audience needs? This is truly the difference between creating products from your head and creating solutions that your audience and your clients really need. Always go back to the time when I first started creating online programs and I followed what everyone else was doing in the marketplace. You see, at the time, everyone was creating these 6 to 8 to 12 weeks program, and I thought I would just follow suit and do the same thing. But I noticed a problem, and the issue that I ran into was people weren't really implementing the way that I thought they should in that time frame. So I started to do a little bit of digging and I started to do a little bit of research, and that's what we are here to talk about today. So welcome to Social Media Saturdays. Today's topic is social listening for success, understanding your audience needs. And as we get ready to get started, just go ahead and let me know if you are out there, if you are watching, if you can see me, if you can hear me, and then we're going to get this party rocking and rolling. Great morning, Jay. I see Jay Hunter is out there this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me on this episode of Social Media Saturdays. I just want to make sure that I will be able to see your comments as you come in. All right, so before we get started, I always like to do this on every Social Media Saturdays episode. Make sure you take a minute to let me know where you are watching from. So if you put your city, put your state inside of the comment section, let me know. So I could know which part of the world you are hailing from. And then also take a minute to introduce yourself to our Storytelling for Super Achievers community. So this is a place where I am going live today, and I am going to rebroadcast on my other pages as well. But for right now, the live conversation is happening in our Storytelling for Super Achievers, Storytelling for Super Achievers Facebook group or community. So take a minute to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, who you serve, how you serve in your business, and how we can connect with you. This is something that I absolutely enjoy every time we do one of these episodes, because it gives us all the opportunity to do what I call virtual networking. And so once you do that, make sure you drop that information inside of the comment section so we can connect. Now, each week, as I do our Social Media Saturdays episode, the question that I set out to answer is, how does the average professional or entrepreneur attract their divine client and build a loyal following or tribe? And also, what skills must you learn? And most importantly, who are you required to become? And so, like I said, today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about social listening. And so before I get into our topic today, I just want to ask, how many have you out there, how many of you out there have ever heard of the social selling cycle? So if you're familiar that there's actually a process to social selling, go ahead and drop that inside of the comments and let me know if you are aware that there's actually such a thing that's called social selling cycle, or have you just heard of the term social selling? I would love, love, love to get your thought and get your feedback on this. Okay, so while I wait for the comments to come in, I'm just curious to know. So I want to know, first of all, before we jump into today's topic, I know social selling is a hot topic. I've seen a lot of people in the marketplace on social media talking about social selling, and I'm just curious to know just exactly how much do you know, or are you aware of social selling and the process of social selling, and what do you think that process is? So take a minute and then drop that into the comment section. Now, I'm going to say, while I'm waiting for the comments to come in, one of the things that I realized is that last couple of weeks that I did this, I was having some issues and trouble with my stream. So I'm just going to let everyone know that the live social media Saturdays is going to happen here in our Storytelling for Super Achievers community every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And then after that, it will be rebroadcasted to the Social Media Saturdays business page. And then you will also be able to check the video on YouTube after the episode is finished. And so if you want to be able to join in on these conversations, live conversations on a weekly basis, then mark it on your calendar. Make sure you set a note for yourself, tie a string around your finger to meet me here inside of the group Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And why am I taking a minute to hop on this? I'm sharing this because this is number one of the ways that I give back. I get a chance to give back to our super achievers, and I get a chance to give back to my superstars. Okay. So people ask me all the time questions about social media. They ask me about the things that they should be doing, strategies, all of that stuff. So this is a place I want to set the tone and let you know that this is a place that you could come on a Saturday morning and bring your questions, get your questions answered. Okay. So I would love, love, love to hear more from our members in our community about some of the things that are challenging you with social media, some of the areas that you're growing into for your social media, and some of the goals that you would like to attain with your social media. Okay. And so as I wait for the question, and the question is, how many of you are aware of the social selling cycle, if you even know what that is? So I'm gonna share with you one of the things that I've decided to do in our sessions is spend some time focusing on what I call the savvy social selling success principles. And the reason why I'm doing this is because one of the things that I've found in this space, once you adhere to these principles, you're always going to be good. This is always going to be the firm rock that you stand on, the pillars that's going to support your social media. So no matter what changes or what trends come up in the marketplace, once you understand and you adhere to these principles, I'm going to tell you, you're always going to be good. Okay. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the social selling cycle, or what I call the savvy social success principles. Now, I came upon this because one of the things that I found, and I was also guilty of this, when it comes to social media, a lot of us really start at the end of the cycle, and the end of the cycle is selling. And so I know you're probably saying to yourself, Taria, of course. Why else would I be positioning my business on social media if it's not to generate leads and to generate clients, to have revenue coming in? That's the main reason why my business is on social media. And I too once thought like that's where I should start. I should start by promoting my products and my services on social media. But I'm going to tell you, I hit a wall. And it was one of those head scratching moments that I couldn't really figure out what was going on. Why did it seem so easy for other brands to show up online and make a whole ton load of sales? And then here I am struggling, trying to figure out my head from my foot, right? And so I did a little bit of research and I did a little bit of digging. And then this is what I found. I found that in order for social selling to happen and to happen effectively, guess what? 3 other steps had to be in place. And so we're going to talk about the first step today. And the first step is social listening. And so if you've never heard of social listening before, I'm just going to break it down in real layman's terms. Social listening, in its simplest form, is having your ear on the ground on social media. So it's putting your ear on these social media streets. So what do I mean by that? It's tuning in to the conversations that are happening all around you. So it's tuning in around conversation around your specific brand and your business. It's tuning into the conversations that are happening in your industry, finding out what things are relevant to your audience. What is it that they care about? and understanding your audience needs, and then you taking all of that feedback and using that feedback in a way that you're able to engage and communicate with your audience better. Okay. And so, yeah, we're going to spend some time talking about that today. And so, yeah, let me know like some of the challenges that you are having with your social media. If you have, like I asked the questions in the beginning, do you have a challenge figuring out what it is your audience truly needs from you? And I'm going to say this, I get this question all the time. Like, I don't know what is it my audience truly wants. How do I figure that out? And so for me, it's always asking, how well are you implementing social listening? Are you putting yourself in the opportunity, in the space that you give yourself the opportunity to really listen and truly understand the things that your audience, are saying, the conversations they're having, the pains, the trials, the tribulations, and not only that, the things that they desire, the transformation that they want to have in their life and in their business. And so it really is a process, and it really does take for us to spend some time getting to know our audience and doing that effectively. Okay, so one of the things that I decided that I was going to talk about is, why is this important? So I gave the definition of what social selling is, but how does this really show up for you and your business? So what's the importance of having a social listening strategy for your social media? So the first thing I covered is that, once again, it gives us the opportunity to truly understand the needs of our audience. And so by monitoring the conversations that our audience, our divine clients are having in the marketplace, what we can do is we can gain insights. So we could learn, like I said, a little bit more about the things that keep them up at night. We could learn about their preferences. This gives us the opportunity to really hone in on what we produce in the marketplace for them. We could start to tailor our content to fit their needs, and we could also start to tailor the products and the services that we provide to fit their needs as well. So the second thing that this gives us the opportunity to do, the importance of having this as part of your strategy, is being able to identify the different trends and opportunities that are happening in your space. So are you able to quickly identify shifts in things that are happening in your industry and in your space? So how many of you feel that you do that very well? Now, I know if you were on here with me last week, you would probably say, well, Taria, doesn't that sound like a little contradictory to what you said? So on the last episode, one of the things that I talked about is being able to pay attention to the trends that are happening. And a lot of times what people do is they jump on the new trends. There's always a new trend that's coming out, especially on social media. I promise you, I see it like every Monday morning. New trends, there's always new platforms emerging. And if you are not careful, what happens is you could get caught up in the wave of all the different changes and all the things that are going on. And you don't want that to be you. So what social listening actually gives you the opportunity to do is to make sure that when trends emerge and new things, new platforms come up in the marketplace, is really identify, should this be a part of my strategy? So should I move or establish an audience on this particular platform? Should I incorporate this strategy into my business, this specific strategy into my business? And a lot of times what I've found, and I've been guilty of it too, what I've found is that we kind of move on the things that we want, or the things that we like, or the things that we find that are easy for us to do. So how many of you have that challenge in your business? Okay, so because it's something that you get excited about, you're interested in it, you go ahead and you think that that's the strategy that you need to have in your business. Where in fact, before you do that, you need to really stop, take a pause, take a beat, and ask yourself the question is this relevant to my audience? How does my audience, or the people that I'm trying to attract to my business, how do they feel about this? Are they on this platform? Before I go develop a whole strategy to get on the platform, are they there? How are they engaging in the platform? Is this trend something that they're following or that they're interested in? How would it make a difference in their lives? So these are the questions that I am going to encourage each of you to start to ask as you take a look at emerging trends. So not only look at the things and the changes that are happening that effectively direct you and your business, but how does it also affect your audience as well? And then are you able to shift and cater to your audience needs? And then also, the third thing that I'm going to share, why having social listening is such an important part of your strategy, is also being able to enhance your customer engagement or your audience engagement. So how many of you out there actually struggle with engagement with your audience? If you're challenged with engagement with your audience, go ahead and let me know. Audience engagement is a challenge, okay? Now, one of the things that I would also say, active listening. And so what do I mean by active listening? Active listening isn't just us putting our conversations inside of the marketplace. It's actually coming back to the conversations and taking things a step further and making those reach outs to understand our audience better. Okay. And so what this will do for you, it also lets your audience know that they're being heard. So once again, a lot of times we can get caught up in the motion of just creating content. Like, I know they said it's a great thing to go ahead and do videos, so I'm going to produce videos, or I should be writing content and putting content out there on social media. But stop for a second and start to think, like, when you put your content out there, how well are you going back to engage with your content? So it's not just checking the likes and the comments and the shares. When someone asks a question, how well are you answering that question on social media? How well are you picking up the phone? How well are you sliding into the DMs to get those questions answered? And once you start to do this, this is actually the beginning places of forming relationships with your audience, okay? And so that's the thing that I want everyone to start to take a look at. So I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to check for comments because I want to make sure that this is really landing for everyone. So I see that Jay is out there waving. Great morning, Jay. Thank you so much for joining. I see that Pauline Smiley is out there this morning. Great morning, Pauline. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining. And then I also have the beautiful Jaliva Carr. Great morning, Jaliva. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining. So let me know, how is this landing for you guys out there? So we're talking about social listening for success, how to use it to understand your audience needs. And so I asked the question in the beginning, how many of you are really challenged with finding out the things that your audience are troubled with, the things that they need from you, so you can put yourself in a position to serve them better? So if that's a challenge for you, go ahead, drop it in the comments. Or even if you have a question around the topic, go ahead, drop your question in the comment area, and I'll make sure that I get to your questions before I end the broadcast. So the second thing that I want to talk about, so we laid up the framework about social listening and the importance of having social listening as part of your strategy. Now we're actually going to take it a step further, and we're going to talk a little bit about techniques, like how do you do this? So it's all great, Taria, to say, like, yes, I should be doing social listening, but how do you do it? So one of the easiest things, and I love this all the time, I love it, and I say it all the time, just ask. Just take a minute to ask the questions to your audience. okay? And you could do that in so many different ways. You could add surveys to your content. So ask the questions. You could poll your audience. Once again, pick up the phone, call them, reach into the DMs, ask people the questions, like just ask, and that will give you an opportunity to learn more about your audience and the things that they truly desire and what it is that they need, okay? And so I get this question all the time. I have a community or I have a group. And in my community or my group, I'm doing everything, Taria. So I'm asking the questions, I'm using the poll feature. And when I ask the questions, I utilize the poll feature, no response. Okay. And I get it because it's happened to me too. Okay. And I'm going to say sometimes we just have to step out of our feelings because it's one of those things that would allow us to go inward. Because social media is such a vulnerable space. Let me just say that. Anybody feel vulnerable on social media like I do? But anyway, right? So you put your content out there, and what we're doing is we're sitting a lot of times with bated breath, waiting for the response to come in, waiting for the engagement to come in. And when the engagement doesn't happen, a lot of times what we do is we internalize it, and we internalize it in a way that says, oh, wow, this isn't something that my audience is interested in. And I'm just going to say, before you give up that quickly, take it a next step, go a little bit further. So if you have a community and you're finding that the engagement in your community is low, reach out to members of your community. I'm going to tell you, whenever I do that, I always find it surprising. So I would just reach out into a DM and say, hey, I asked a question inside of the group and I just want to get your feedback. And when I take that extra step, people are more than happy to answer the questions. And then that gives me, once again, the opportunity to keep my finger on the pulse of the things that my audience and my community, my clients really need. So sometimes you just have to take a different approach, take an extra step, and be creative with it. Okay. And I'm just going to say this. This is the reason why I love doing live videos. So this gives me the opportunity also to check in with members of our community, Storytelling for Super Achievers. It gives me the ability to check in with my audience on other platforms because I'm streaming. And so once I do content like this and I ask questions, I make it a habit to come back to the video, check the comments, check the responses, and not just check them for my own knowledge, but just reach out to people and say, hey, look, I saw you ask this question. What's going on? How is this showing up? How are you doing? Where do you need the assistance? Where do you need the help? Okay. And that's how we could actively take a look at implementing that strategy or that technique. So it's just asking, okay? And the second thing that I'm going to say that I'm going to follow up, because I just said I like videos. So I'm going to follow up by saying, are you really taking inventory of the things that your audience really like? Like, how do they engage on social media? So how many of you know how your audience prefers to engage on social media? And so I know you might be asking, Turia, what do you mean by that? So when you take a look at your audience, what's the type of content that they find themselves consuming more of? So is it video content? And when we come to video content, of course, we have several different forms of video content. So we have long form video content, like the one that I'm producing now. We have short form video content. We have even shorter form video content, which would be your reels or your stories. Okay. So which one? Of those, if you're doing videos, do you know that your audience truly want? Okay. Is it emails? Do they prefer to receive content via the emails? Now, I'm going to share with you, this is one of the biggest shifts that I had to learn in my business, because for years I actually told myself, I'm not a writer. I don't like to write content. And it felt as if every time I had to write content, I had to take a nap. Like literally, that was the conversation that I had running in my mind over written content for years. Now, I'm going to tell you, about 2 years ago, I gave myself a challenge. And the challenge was, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on written content. I'm going to focus on writing emails to my list. Every week, we're going to have emails going out to the members on our list. Now, I'm going to tell you, was it an easy thing for me to do? It didn't start out easy, but just like video, as I continue to do it, I got better and better. So are you giving yourself the opportunity to grow in certain areas? And I'm making this point because that's one of the ways when we listen to our audience, they would sometimes challenge us. Okay. So yes, people will say, you know what, I'm not really on social media. So I have, clients who would say, social media, I don't really spend a lot of time on Facebook, or I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram. I prefer to receive information via email. So adapting your strategy once again to fit your audience needs. Okay, so that was my shift. I had to learn to get better at writing. Okay, and so writing, and then even I talked about emails, but also, do you know if your audience actually enjoys blogs? And so, do you have a website? Do you have your blogs up on your website where they could go at their leisure and grab content on your website in the form of blogs? Okay. And so what shift? And so Jalifa is saying she's learning how important social listening is. And yes, Jaliva, I'm glad that you're getting benefit from this video, because like I said, for me, one of the things when I started at the end of the cycle. So I thought the key to really being successful on social media was showing up with my products and services, promoting my programs. And I struggled. And so I didn't understand that I first had to lay the groundwork in order for that to happen. So I first had to put my finger on the pulse of what is it that my audience truly needs. So what is it that they need? And then once I understood their needs, then I could go ahead and tailor my content. I could tailor my products and services to fit their needs. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're just creating out of our heads, and then we're hoping and praying that we stumble across, the right people, in that moment for our products and services. Whereas if we take a step back and we actually incorporate the strategy of social listening, then we'll find that our efforts to produce content and our effort to create products and services, we could streamline that, because we're actually giving our audience and our clients the things that they need. Okay. And so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is social monitoring. And this really goes hand in hand with social listening. And when I talk about social monitoring, I don't mean that you have to spend hours on end. So let me just say this. I know I talk and I share a lot of things that should be happening and should be done on social media. And I know for a lot of people, it sounds like it's a lot. And so social media, if you're not careful, can be that place where it could become overwhelming very quickly. Okay. And so one of the things that I'm going to share with you is that there are tools out there that would allow you to make monitoring and tracking of your brand a whole lot easier. Okay. So there are tools that you can use. And you could use tools. One of the things that I always find that's really quick and really easy is monitoring conversations by just going in and just searching. your content, okay? Or searching your hashtags. When you search your hashtags, you get a chance to see what people are saying about your brand. Look at your brand, like just instead of going to, just your social media platforms and just, browsing around, like actually put your stuff in the search and just go directly and search by keywords, search by hashtags that you have given your audience the command to use or the call to action to use. And that will give you the opportunity to quickly bring up that information. So you're not spending a lot of time on social media. So you do need to spend some time, okay? But you don't need to spend all day, every day on social media, but just block out some time where you're actually monitoring your brand, okay? Monitor your brand. Also, spend some time to take a look at what others in your industry are also doing. That's also a great form of social listening. Do you know what your competitors are doing? Do you know what your collaborators are doing? Take a look at their conversations. What are they sharing with their audience that will give you insights to how you can serve your audience better? Okay, so social monitoring is also a very important part of it. Make sure that you are blocking the time to do that. All right, and I see that Geneva is saying that's good, monitoring your brand. Yes, Geneva, we have to, be able to take the time, to do that as well. Spend some time really doing that analysis on our brand, because once again, we could get in a habit of going out and putting out content. So this is something that I do all the time. So I write content. I write content in batches. So every week I write for my social media platforms, okay? And what I do at the end of the week, I'm going to go back and I'm going to check my content. Okay. So I know that I get notifications every time someone likes a piece of content or they comment or they share. So those notifications come to me on a regular basis. But guess what? There's also other tracking that you don't get notification about. Okay, so at the end of the week, what I do is I sit down and I go back through all of my stuff. I want to see things like views. I want to see how if people are sharing, where they're sharing to, and when they share, how does their audience interact with the content that I'm sharing? If there's questions, I go back and I check also people in my industry. What are the hot topics that people in my industry, in my space, social media, what are they talking about? So this is how I keep my pulse on what's going on in my space. And then you could also do that as well. And I'm going to say this, I find that when we take this approach to social media, it gives social media so much more meaning in our business. Social media shifts from that thing that we love to hate to do to that thing is just like, oh, this is data that I am collecting for my business. This is data that's going to allow me to serve at a higher level. Okay, so monitoring and tracking. All right. And then the third thing that I want to talk about is how do we respond to these trends? And how do we respond to the analytics that we're getting back? So one example I want to spend some time talking about is I have a client, and over the years, I have just been absolutely amazed on how quickly he adapts to merging trends, and he's able to position his brand and his company to stay relevant. And by doing this, like totally through social listening. And so I'm always amazed at how, as things in the marketplace changes, he's almost on the pulse of the change. And so I'm just going to ask a question. So I know that there are different people, out there. So how many of you out there would consider yourself an early adapter? So if we have early adapters out there, how many of you are early adapters? Do you know what an early adapter is? And so our early adapter is that person when new things come out in the marketplace, they're able to jump on it right away. So they're not waiting for, everybody else to catch up. They're like kind of out there. So there's an innovator, people who come up with the idea. Then the early adopters, the people who say, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run with it, right? So how many of you consider yourself early adopters? And then the second stage after that is where most people, fall after they have watched things go on in the marketplace and then they deem it safe. They're like, oh, okay, this is safe. It did not blow up. I'm going to go ahead and step my toe over here. And then you have the late adopters or the stragglers, okay? So I'm curious to know, which one are you? Where do you see yourself in the space? So one of the things that I'm always impressed about is that he's an early adopter. And I've watched him, come through COVID and take advantage of all of the trends in the switch between being in a in-person space to a virtual space. And he was one of the persons that was able to adapt very quickly, like literally shift his business to take advantage of what was happening in the marketplace. And then I watched him do it again a second time in the space of AI, right? And so as things come on the space for AI, he's just like, oh, Taria, boom, this is what you need to be doing. And I was just like, I'm not an early adopter. Okay. So I'm just going to say that. I got to kind of put my foot in a little bit. And so I remember when he first started, talking about that stuff and he made the switch, but it took me a while to really understood and say, hey, this is where I need to be based on what it is I'm trying to do in my business or what I want to do in my business. And also, how does this affect my clients? So how am I able to use these things to serve my clients and to serve my audience? Okay. So that's the thing. How do we respond to the feedback that we're getting? And so it's able for us to be able to make the adjustments. So as you do your social listening, you get your feedback. What are the things that you are going to do? What are the things that you're going to change? And my personal experience, like I said, with this is when I first started creating programs, I started creating programs for things that I thought that people wanted and needed. Okay. And so I went ahead and I developed a program. But guess what? That's good. It's all well and fine. But at some point, we got to go back and we got to listen. We got to listen to our audience. We got to listen to how people are interacting with the things that we put out into the marketplace. And so what that allowed me to do is to make some shifts in my business. So what are the things that I am going to keep? So what worked well inside of the program? What are some of the things that didn't work well that I didn't need to keep at all? Should have never been there in the first place. So remove it. And then what are the things that need to be added? And so these are the questions that by social listening, you're able to adjust and always make sure that you are able to serve and you're serving your audience, you're serving your clients well. Okay. And so let me see. Jaliva is saying it depends. The AI, I'm a late adopter with that. I wanted to make it line up with my values. Yes, I definitely understand that, Jaliba, because that was the question that I had when it came to AI as well. Like, once again, I have a program that's called Content Plan for Profit, where I work with my clients in creating their content. And it's not just putting content out there, as those of you who work with me know, is a specific way that we use content, and we use our stories to infuse our content, to bring our content to life, okay? And so when I first heard of AI, I'm going to be totally honest. I said, ain't no way. I actually said that. Ain't no way that I'm going to share or show someone something that's going to disrupt what I'm teaching in my program. That's how I viewed AI. And so, yes, it took me a minute to once again learn what it is and understand how to strategically use it in my business and strategically show it, to clients and share it with others. Okay. And so, yes, in the space, and usually for me, I'm just going to say that's how my mind works. Okay. So I have to, spend a little time. I have to do a little bit of researching. I'm not the quick to jump on every trend type person, because once again, I look at the long game. So that's for me before I enter into a platform. And this is one of the things that I'm conscious about before I enter into a social media platform. What is it going to take to get on that platform? What does it not even get on the platform? What does it take to maintain a constant presence on the platform? Is there a sound strategy on the platform? The people that I'm attracting or I want to attract in my business, are they even on the platform? How do they consume the content on the platform? Right? And so these are all things that before I enter into a space on social media, I'm just using that as an example, before I enter into a space, these are the things that I do as I look. So I don't consider myself like an early adapter to jump onto trends. But once I analyze it and it makes sense, I develop a strategy, then it makes it a whole lot easier for me to move. So thank you so much for that, Jaliva. Yes, I agree, be more strategic. And because that's the thing, we want to make sure that we're not just taking action for action's sake. We want to be able to take the action that matters, okay? And so any other questions for you before we get ready to wrap up this session of Social Media Saturdays? This was a great conversation. And so I am hoping that once again, that you guys have the ability to learn a little bit more about social listening. And like I said, what I'm going to do is spend some time on these sessions talking about the savvy social selling principles, because these are principles, and social listening is just the first step. And so as we continue on, we move into the month of February, I'm going to start to share a second principle, and the second principle is social influence. Okay, so we're going to talk about social influence. We're going to define that. We're going to understand what that is, what that means for us, and how do we use it, to show up better on social media. And so, Jaliva, thank you so much. She says, yes, this was great. I am glad, hon, that you were able to take time out of your Saturday and join me. And like I said, this is the place. I want to make this the space where you guys could come on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, bring your questions, okay? And I will answer your questions. Or even as you go through your week, if things pop up for you, drop them inside of the community. Don't be shy. That's what the community is there for, okay? So drop it inside of the community, tag me just to make sure that I see it, okay? And then I will answer your questions. I will either answer directly in the group, or I will feature your question on one of our Social Media Saturdays episodes, okay? And so before we go ahead and wrap, I'm going to leave you with the thought of the week, okay? And the thought of the week is the essence of social media is not just broadcasting our message, but tuning in to the voices of those we aim to serve. So today, I encourage you to shine. And what do I mean by shine? I encourage you to show up authentically, hone in on your audience needs, influence through meaningful interactions, nurture and build lasting relationships, and finally, but most important, create memorable experiences. Okay. And so, with that being said, thank you for joining this episode of Social Media Saturdays, and keep shining until we meet next time. Take care and bye bye.